Hi everyone. It's been a while since I used the Windows machine, but strangely enough, I'm supposed to run this slide on a Windows machine. So let's see. Oh, yeah, this works. So everyone has our own very definition for success. I personally have my own. And that was one of the things I was thinking of mostly for this talk. So I was like, I'm going to meet a bunch of people. Some people have money, others do not have money. Some people are well respected in their own companies. Others are probably just like me. They just talk a lot, like he said. And so the concern was, how do we all come together and then have a definition for success? Now, for me, I do not see success as an end goal. I see success as a path. And that is the reason why I frame the topic as the road to becoming a successful dev. So it's more or less like, as we walk on the road, as we walk on the path, we learn to be successful, and then we keep on becoming successful. Let me just have a quick about myself. I'm a senior consultant with Andela, and I meant the next statement. I'm really serious about that. Probably I can't say it, but you can read from there. And aside that, I have a passion for programming. I like talking. Basically, I like debating a lot. So if you see me with Adam, we are probably arguing or probably listening to him talk about something he's done out of the moon. If you see me with Francis, I'm probably bashing him or kind of like making him feel in a way. But that's basically about me. My website is eduwilly.com, very easy, Slack, eduwilly. On Twitter, eduwilly. The only difference is that Twitter has an underscore between my edu and willy. So you can actually see me from the rest. So let's get straight into it. I read this book, very interesting book for developers, and I wish every developer here reads that book. It's called Clean Code, A Handbook of Agile Software Craftsmanship, and was written by Robert C. Martin. If you're a developer here and you haven't read that book, I beg you, please start tonight, or probably after this program. Read that book, it's very good. In the first chapter, Robert started with this particular statement, and it was very catchy. He said, code is somehow behind the times, that code is no longer the issue. We should be concerned about models and requirements. Instead, someone suggested that we are close to the end of code. That is interesting, right? And probably, I don't know. If anyone feels that is possible, just get your hand up. Let's see. Wow, a lot of us. Okay, if you feel this is not possible, let's see. How many? Okay, that's like just 2 people. Very strange. Now, when Robert started the whole book with this particular paragraph, he went to the next paragraph and got me silent. Let's see what he said. He started by saying, nonsense. And then after saying nonsense, he said, we will never be rid of code because code represents the details of the requirements. So when people sit down and they come up with certain requirements and they say, okay, we want this, we want that, we want to achieve this is where we want to go, they will have to find a way of expressing that. And for them to be able to express that, someone has to write what? The code. Someone has to maintain the what? The code. So he said, in specifying requirements is in such detail. And he continues by saying that the specification is what? The code. Now, based on this powerful statement that Robert made in that particular book, I have come to the assumption that our job as developers will never come to an end. As long as the world wants to live in that digital era that we've currently ushered ourselves into, we are always going to become developers, and our job is going to get much more relevant. Yes, it's true. Some people will sit down and say, Java is too boring, Java is too shitty, so let's bring up something new, so let's bring up, say, Kotlin. But the question is, how do they bring out Kotlin? Someone has to what? Write the code. And when they have Kotlin out and it's working like today, we are also impressed about Kotlin, someone has to use Kotlin to now make something come out, something useful. So it is the reason why we developers see our job and we see our passion as the light and nothing else. And so all the more so we have to look at ways in which we can be successful and ways in which we can become better in trying to do what we are really good at and what we love doing. So if you're a developer here, please don't think in 10 years' time you're going to be generating things from a screen. It's never going to happen. We are still going to write our code. Then, the next key concept is, okay, we are developers. It makes sense. We currently understand that our future is very solid. We are always going to be around because whatever specification or requirements that people generate, we are still going to be the ones bringing those things into life. But what is our aim? I also read another book, a very interesting book. Don't worry, I read lots of weird books, so you may see me referencing them. And this one was by one guy called Vitruvius, and that statement really caught my attention, so I thought of like referencing it to capture what developers are doing or what we are aiming to achieve in life. And he said, in architecture, as in other arts, two considerations must be constantly kept in view. Namely, one, the intention, two, the matter used to express that intention. And he goes by saying, but the intention is founded on the conviction that the matter wrought will fully suit the purpose. Now let me explain if you're a little confused from what he's saying. So what he's saying is that when someone wants to get something done, they have the intention, right? So they come up with say, oh, let's get some requirements down. I want to build a ship. And this ship is not supposed to travel on water. This ship is supposed to travel in the air. And how I want people to interact with this ship is to do that on their computer. So on their computer, they're going to have it in the form of a game where they control the ship, but instead of making this ship move on water, it's going to move in the air. Kind of like when we start with those concepts or those thoughts, it's always in our head. It's something that is not tangible, that is not visible, so it's an intention. But how do we make sure that this intention is really fruitful and it's now back to life? That is by writing what? Code. So when we write the code, we bring all the intentions, all the requirements that some people have come up with to life, and then people now start finding value with it. So in short, you could see that I tried rephrasing everything in my own language. That's like the Eduwili version. And it's like we provide value to customers. That is, we make their requirements possible. So if you're a developer, it makes sense to always benchmark your success against that. You should ask yourself, how much of a value am I providing to my customers or my end users, people who consume or use my product? If we find ourselves providing lots of value, then we can say we are successful, we are really reaching our aim. If it boils down to the fact that I can't think of anything useful that I've done to people in the next or say in the previous 2 years, then what happens? I am not what? Useful. Then I can never say that I am successful in what I'm actually doing. So for us to be able to walk on the road to success as developers, the first thing we have to ask ourselves is that, are we really providing value to our customers or people who use our products? Do they really give us the impression that they are getting value from what we are providing? As long as we can have a strong conviction around that, then we know that we have reached our aim and we are already on the road to what? To success. We are really making it. So we talk to many people around here and then they can say, oh, for the past 10 years I've worked on so many products. But that is not the main point. The question is, how much of an impact has those products brought to people? Most likely a lot. And that is why the experience of developing for 10 years is so relevant to us. And we can say, yes, these guys are successful developers. And no wonder they earn that title, senior developers as well. But how do we really reach there when we are starting? Or when we are somewhere within the middle? How do we really get ourselves onto that particular road, onto that particular path, right? I sat down last night after work, a little confused, because I had to do with lots of tests, which were like bugs for me. And I came up with 4 pillars, right? And I realized for me, as a developer myself, these 4 things have become like the foundation to how I benchmark my success, or how I kind of like triggered my own path as a developer. So the 4 parts starts on the left, right? That's the one at the top. And that's the basics, that's the first one. The second one is to understand tech trends. The third one is contribute to OSS, that's open source software. Then the final one at the top is practice, practice, practice. I think when you look at my chart, it looks so nice, but probably doesn't give so much information, right? So let's dive right into it. Let's pick the first one, the basics. Now, when we are young and then our parents take us to school, we start from the nursery, kindergarten, and then we start building on top of that. You might realize that no one in the kindergarten is taught algebra. Why? Because it's so confusing. It doesn't make sense to go to a KG1 or KG2 kid and tell the person x plus y equals 2, x plus 27 equals y, find x and y. The kid will look at you and tell you, are you joking? Is this a new game? why it's so confusing. So when we start as developers, one thing that we always have to focus on and we always have to take note of is the basics. And what do you mean by the basics? I mean, when you are learning, yeah, it makes sense. You may start with JavaScript and get all the syntax, get everything right, yeah, it makes sense. But is that really the basics for your career? Is your career all about define functions, right, variables, get me the weird syntax? Is that what our career is all about? No. Our career is basically about solving problems. So the basics in this particular context is that we need to learn how to solve problems, not necessarily how to learn programming languages. So if you know 10 programming languages offhand and you can actually write syntax in all of them, you can convert from whatever language to a different language, and you can't use any one of them to solve a problem, then of course, your foundation or your basics is very, 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 very awful. You really have to work on that. But the concept, like the question comes up as, why do I have to worry about that? Yeah, it makes sense. I really have to get the basics, because if I know how to solve problems with whatever single or double language that I know, I'm providing some form of value. But how do I do that? For me, this is how I did it when I started. I started programming in 2010, if probably I didn't share that with you. But I got really serious about programming somewhere around 2013, 2014. That's when I started my own startup. And I had to look at ways of pushing myself, because I didn't do computer science like most of the people here did. I'm just guessing. I am more or less like a telecom engineer, but I did that because I just needed a degree in my life, right? So I had to find ways of pushing myself, making sure I'm really meeting up with the people that I aspire to be. So what I did was very simple. I had these 3 steps I took. 1, I went to GitHub. Previously, I was more or less like on Microsoft projects, so I played a lot on Codeplex. So I would see all these projects that people have, right? Then I'll pick just one. So I can't talk about that project because it was very bad, but I can just give the clue around that. So I just picked one project there, and all that I did was that I took their documentation and then ran it on an online platform, like something similar to Grammarly, so that it just showed me the grammatical errors on their site. So once I had that, I just created a PR or something similar to a PR for Codeplex there. Just pitched the idea to them, and I told them, oh, your documentation is wrong, and if you had phrased all the English this way, it would work. They were like, good, that's really nice of you. So they took it. Then that meant I had contributed, right? So I had done something useful. Now I know a documentation that I have revised is now useful to lots of developers that are using that particular package. And that was the first step I took. It really gave me the confidence, because I now realized I could now call myself as, yes, I have now contributed to open source software, so I can count myself among the big guys around. That was very, very genius of me, right? The next thing I did was, okay, now I'm able to edit documentation and make sure the documentation are now sensible and reasonable English-wise. So how do I get to the core? So I started looking through issues, and especially the ones that I felt were very, very easy. Just, I think late last year, I did something similar. So there was this company, I think there was this package called Boo. So what they do is that they pick Redis and then they create jobs around Redis, right? And my company, 2U, was supposed to write a system that kind of like uses Boo and creates our jobs and run things in the background. And we had a problem. So we always had a URL, and we had to push our URL to the system, and the system was always rejecting our URL. The system would always work when we break things down. I was like, no, this is supposed to work. So I just went to the documentation site, looked through the issues, and I realized someone had already raised that issue. Then I did something very genius again. So I went to their backend and then just did a Control F, that is a find, to look for where they actually calling that method. Then when I saw that particular line, all that I had to focus on was just 4 to, I think, 6 lines, which kind of encapsulated the whole logic. And my only trick was find where I can put my own logic so that I can make them pass the URL I'm giving them and then get whatever they were already expecting out of that. And it worked. I submitted a PR to Boo, and I became a contributor to that open source software. So when it comes to taking note of the basics and learning how to solve problems, you don't have to go to the moon. You don't actually have to do so many crampy things, so many hard coding things, just to be able to contribute or to get started with how to solve problems. So if you are here and you're a developer and you've already started and you want to learn how to solve these problems, just go online, find documentation, run them through Grammarly, get the grammatical errors, just send in the PLs for those things. Go through code bases, but don't waste your time trying to learn everything, right? Just look at that single section where you think you can solve the problem or where you think you can contribute. Just send these things in. At the very least, it will give you the confidence that you need, and then that would really help you to be solid on your ABCs. After that, you can actually say, I want to challenge the whole platform. So I want to bring in something new that I'm proposing for them. That's up to you. But by then, you would have been solid with your basics. So we need to learn how to how to solve problems instead of learning the programming languages. But there is another problem, another pitfall there. So right now, we may have like a path or we may have certain things in mind that we think we can do, but how do we actually approach the whole thing? I've given a clue, but there are other things that we also need to watch out for. So I set something down that we should avoid being Superman. So when we are developers, all that we think is, yeah, I'm a developer. When there's a problem, let me attack it. Let me just go right into it. That is the biggest mistake we can ever make. Problem solving is not all about attacking, like you are playing a FIFA football match or whatever. Problem solving is about thinking and getting the bulb light inside your head. So sometimes it makes sense to just go with the pencil and paper idea, to get things down so that you are really sure, okay, if I go this route, then I can get this particular problem solved. When you have captured that same logic, it makes problem solving easy and your life as a developer will become the best. If, I don't know, whether there's another word for bigger than the best or whatever. But that's like how things will go for you. The next key thing that I want everyone to take note of is that we need to look at the trends. What is happening in tech, right? So let me give you scenarios to probably get you to get a concept I'm trying to bring out here. Let's say if you were a mainframe developer 10 years ago, what will be your job now? Obviously, you'll be jobless because even though mainframe development goes on, but the need for such developers is not so strong. If you were a systems engineer, say 10 years ago, your job today is a little different because today you are getting the movement of DevOps people around, right? And they are trying to do everything. So if you had focused on that particular trend, today you'll be what? Jobless. If you are programming in specific languages and the market is not moving up with that language, what happens to you the next 10 years? It's going to be a problem for you. So if you really want to walk on the road to success and you really want to get like the maximum kind of like benefits from yourself, the best is to sit down and look at where you have your interest. So I'm a JS developer, right? But I know JS is going to be up there in the next 10 years. And that is why I'm trying to be better in being a JS developer. I tried C# earlier, right? But I realized that some of the markets that I work in do not have these enterprise concepts and mostly are startups. So I had to add JavaScript to my C# so that I'm now more valuable. So when I go to a business, I tell them I'm a C# developer. I can do backend things for them. And when I go to another market and I can't find backend jobs on C#, I can tell them I'm a JS developer, and so I can do the React, Angular stuff for them. And then I'm still what? I'm still valuable, I'm still making money, and I'm still able to solve these problems and add value to people. So we always need to analyze where tech is going. AI, ML is starting to pick up, right? And the trends is just moving up, telling us that in Ghana, in the next 5 years, in the next 10 years, AI and ML is going to become like one of the next big things to ever happen to our country. So if you pick a career path there, it looks like you have some success just ahead of you. And that is something that we need to think around. We need to put our heads around. So remember that our passion won't feed us, right? If you love this programming language that's, it's rocking for you, but it's not having the market trends moving up, then you better probably have to think about something else. That is the next thing that I feel like can help us really be successful. The third one is really interesting. That is like, we need a platform. And for us to get the platform, we need to find a way to showcase what we are capable of doing, right? And when we're able to showcase what we are capable of doing, we need people to give us good feedback, right? And that really helps a lot. And for me personally, that has been one of the things that has really helped me grow. I am never afraid to put shitty code out there that I think works, but will always be happy to see someone tell me that my code could be improved on line 1, line 2, line 30. That is something we probably need to dare ourselves on, and that can really make us successful. So if you are here and you think, I have to get this thing right. If this thing is not right, I can't actually put it out there. Then you're actually choking yourself for success. Once we do that, we will get good feedback from good engineers who will probably get the insight to look at our code, and that will really, really, really help us. And that I gave the same suggestions that I had already highlighted, that we need to start simple. We can start with the documentation, grammar stuffs, and then we can move into the examples and then start fixing demos for them. We can even create demos for them. I think earlier this year I did something similar, and even though it's not yet out, but it's something I'm still working on in the pipeline. So it's very simple. I can share that with you. So Happy.js is a framework that works, that's like a Node.js backend stuff, right? And Happy wrote a new version, that is like version 17, and they converted everything on Happy.js version 17 into async and await, right? So if you wrote Happy 14, Happy 15, Happy 16, you will still be using the old approach, but if you went to Happy 17, everything breaks. But Happy finished writing Happy 17 and even released it, but if you went to their website, you'd realize that they were still using the same syntax for writing Happy 16, and that wasn't useful. So I just went there, talked to the guy, I'm like, okay, I can provide an example for you. But the first thing I did was, since my team heavily relies on Happy for our production systems, I had to propose to my team that we can actually go with Happy 17, and these are the examples. These are the ways we can convert our existing systems into this particular platform. That worked for them. Today, my team is heavily moving towards Happy 17, and the migration is as smooth as possible. And my team even thinks, because I proposed that, I'm part of the people that should champion that same movement. Isn't that success? Have I not added value to my team in that form? That is it. So we don't have to actually look at bigger ways and think, oh, we need to make sure we have this thing right. No, start with whatever you have. Look for holes around where you can actually add value when you have the platform, and then just do that, and that puts you on the path to success. The next one is the most important, practice. You can never be a good developer when all your code runs in your head, or when all your code can be found in the textbook that you were studying, or probably on the online YouTube site. That doesn't make you the developer you are supposed to be. To become the developer that we all want to be, to become successful as developers on the road, we really need to practice, practice, practice. As long as we practice, we become perfect. We become very good at doing what we think we are doing. We start adding value. We start learning how we can tune value to add extra value. And then we start becoming the best. So for instance, many people start and they go like, I want to become a full stack engineer. So I go to Udemy and I pick a Udemy course, right? The course tells me, because it's marketing purpose, it tells me, oh, I can watch this Udemy course, it will take me 8 hours and I should be a guru as a full stack developer. But the question is, does 8 hours really make you a full stack developer? Is full stack development all about just 8 hours? That is very terrible for us to think like that. So if we really want to get right into it, to make our lives as developers, to make our career, our jobs a success, we need to really practice, practice, practice till we feel like we are more perfect, and then we can really, really add value. So for me, I would say it takes 800 hours to become a full stack developer. And do you know how many days that is? You can calculate, and you see it's like more than a month of practicing. It took other people a few years to become who they are right now. It will never take you 8 hours to become who they are right now. So it won't take you a year or probably 6 months to become a senior developer. Please, let's practice, and we know the more we practice, we will become perfect. I feel like when all of us think around those 4 pillars I just mentioned earlier, and I can share again, that is to always look at our basics and make sure they are solid, to look at where tech is going, the trends in which tech is actually moving, and pick the ones where we feel market-wise we are going to provide more value and we are going to actually gain value ourselves. If we contribute to open source software as much as we can, and if we practice, 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 obviously we are going to become very good developers, and we can say we are successful enough. Thank you very much, and I think, is there any questions?